and it's time to give our Creighton midseason grades. We did Nebraska. You gave him a B plus. I gave him an A minus. Snarky TK the YouTube comments goes, renowned Nebraska ball hater Ravi Lulla gives them an A minus. Wow. And I said, no. No,
get him.
I say, no. I'm not a hater of Nebraska. I'm a hater of bad basketball, and they don't play bad basketball anymore. So I don't hate on them anymore.
Talk about playing the Uno reverse card.
Listen, I don't like bad basketball.
That's like taking a shot without taking a shot. Am I right, Shane?
Listen, if you're a Nebraska basketball fan and you try and deny that they've played bad basketball for a really long time, I don't know what to tell you. All right, because it's been bad. They don't play bad basketball anymore. I don't hate anymore. It's a pretty simple equation here, guys.
He brought a knife to a gunfight. Jeez.
The Creighton Bluejays, their resume so far, they are 13-4, 4-2 in the Big East. They're currently in third place, one game back of Seton Hall and UConn, who are both 5-1. They are number 13 in the net rankings, and they are 15th on KenPom. That is your general rankings there. They have a loss to Colorado State, who's currently a top 25 KenPom team. Not a bad loss at all. A loss to Villanova, a number 26 KenPom team in overtime. Not a bad loss at all. And a road loss to Marquette, number 17 in KenPom. The outlier here, much like the Minnesota loss for Nebraska, is UNLV. It was a neutral site game. Technically, it was in Nevada, but not at their home stadium. UNLV, 85 in the KenPom, very similar to the 90s that I believe 92 Minnesota was for the Nebraska loss. So similar in that sense for Nebraska and Creighton in their resumes. For me, my grade is going to be based off of expectations coming into the year.
You and me both.
So that I think is really important because with Nebraska, they have outperformed my expectations because I thought, okay, they're losing Sam Griesel, they're losing Derek Walker. Those were the two best players on the team last year. Without those guys, they are well below 500 last year. I thought that was I was really impressed with the way they've been able to adapt to life without those two guys. Okay. So that factors into the grade. On the other side of things, I thought at times Creighton this year has looked way more stagnant on offense than I would like to see. Now, listen, they're a top 25 KenPom offense. It's not like they're a bad offensive team.
But they also opened the season as the 8th best team in the country.
Sure, right? So this is a team that, and again, the raw numbers you look at and you're like, okay, these aren't bad. But as you watch them, there's stretches throughout games that you're like, man, the offense is the ball is really sticking. People aren't really moving. They're kind of just passing around the perimeter. They're not getting much in terms of good looks. And you kind of have stretches like that in a lot of games for Creighton. And so that's baked into my grade here. I'll let you go first. Where were you at with Creighton on your midseason grade?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with the worst loss was UNLV. And it's hard to give this group, with the expectations they had coming into the season, anything higher than a B at this point. And, right now they're finding ways to win, which is very, very good for this team, but it's also very good toward their letter grade. Because if they didn't beat St. John's the other night, you'd probably see me looking at the C+ range. But because they found a way to win on a night that St. John's actually game planned better than Creighton, they did everything. If you look at keys to the game for both sides, St. John's checked off all three and still lost that basketball game. But great teams find ways to win even when things aren't going right. And that's what Creighton is right now. They have the pieces. We talked about the loss of Ryan Nembhard to open things up this season, and people instantly just slotted Stephen Ashworth as a better fit for this team. And, that may still be the case, but I also don't know if it totally is the case anymore, because you're really missing that element that Nembhard brought by getting to the rack. Now, you talk about sticky fingers, like the ball stuck to Nembhard's hands a lot whenever he was a part of this team. And so in terms of ball movement and who gets involved, it's better to have Ashworth on the floor. But that ability to score, it seemed like had a little bit more of a chance with Nembhard than it does with Ashworth, because I don't know if Trey gets to the rack enough to instantly boost up that offensive grade that I'd like to see that Nembhard brought last year, but I'm still not taking away what Creighton's doing right now, because what are they, top 3 in 2-point scoring?
Yeah, they're one of the best 2-point shooting teams in the country. They're incredibly efficient on the inside.
15, 16 in offense? We talked to Ba. I think Ba said 15
last
week.
After the St. John's game, I think they're 25. They're top 25 offense. They're number 15 or 13 defense. So
again, like, I'm not tearing down this offense by any means, but I would like to see somebody. And maybe it's Shireman. Maybe I'm not giving Shireman enough credit for getting to the rack this year.
He's been a lot more aggressive.
But just finding somebody that can get to the hole on a consistent basis. And that's kind of what Nembhard did for this team last year. Was it always what you wanted to see? No, but I do want to see a little bit more of that to open things up around.
So what I still think Ashworth is a better fit, but I don't think they've done a good enough job of adjusting what they tried to do last year with what they need to do this year, right? So last year, the last few seasons, really, you go to Marcus Zagorowski, you go to Mo Watson, so that's going back 7-8 years now. You go to Ryan Nembhard. There's a lot of very pick and roll heavy offense for Creighton, which shifted away from kind of a more ball movement offense that Coach McDermott had run previously. I think they need to shift a little bit more back to the ball movement offense, and they've started to. You don't see them run nearly as many pick and rolls as they did with Ryan Nembhard last year. But as they continue to shift into that, there's lots of different ways to accomplish the same thing that Ryan Nembhard did, and that's to get a piece of the paint. We talked about this with Nick Baugh last week. One of those ways is to make sure you are getting Ryan Kalkbrenner touches in the paint. That compromises.
And they're starting to do that more.
Yes, and they're doing that better. Shireman's been more aggressive to the rack, which is important. Trey Alexander seems like he's finding his footing again after being really good in the early season, then having a little bit of a drought in the kind of that mid.
I'd like to see more of that, though, too.
I agree. And I do think Stephen Ashworth has gotten a little bit more aggressive to the rim as well and being less of just a spot-up shooter. I think that there is a plan there that makes this a better roster fit than what we've seen currently. But based on what we've seen so far, I can't judge on what I think can or will happen. I have to judge based on what I've seen so far. I'm actually at a C+ with this team. I think they have basically met or slightly less than met expectations, and aesthetically it hasn't looked quite as smooth as I would have liked to have seen. But again, does that mean they're not as good of a team as Nebraska? No, what it means is based on expectations and based on what they think their roster is. Currently, I think Nebraska's outperforming their roster. Right now, I don't know that Creighton is to the same extent. That's why the grades are different for me. I think Creighton has a better roster. I think at times this year, Nebraska's played better basketball with the roster they have. So for me, it's a C+ for Creighton right now. But again, with the things we talked about, I do think there's still a ton of upside for this team.
A lot of upside.
And I think they can get it fixed before the end of the season. We'll see. KenPom has them favored in all but 2 of their final 14 games in the regular season.
You can bet when I go to Vegas, they're winning the title.
Coming up next, Adam McClintock, college football professor on Hurrdat Sports Radio.